Sorry to keep you all waiting. We've been in closed session, getting updates on several items and making some decisions that will be shared with you a bit later. But we apologize for being late getting back to you. Our council work session typically starts at 6:45. We will go ahead and follow the order on the agenda, so we'll do the council work session followed by then the call to order for the general meeting. Let's begin with reviewing the agenda, and let me ask if any member has an adjustment they would like to make to the agenda.
I would just like to make a note that on old business, number 2, the ERC rules and regulations to be tabled.
Okay. That was an issue that we discussed in closed session and agreed that there would be further review of the exact wording and would be appropriate to table for tonight, but to address at the meeting on February 19th. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
Before public comments, I'd like to discuss the business of town administrator.
Mark, I'm sorry, I'm late in getting back to you. I would like to make one other adjustment to the agenda. The item, let's see here, item E3, purchase property and restrict who uses it. I would like to ask council's permission to move that up, and it would immediately follow public comments. Any objection from council on making that move?
No.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Mark, please go ahead.
Just like to bring it up before public comments to discuss the town administrator's position. Go ahead, John.
Do we do that after we open the meeting and have our pledge?
Yes.
Yes.
He's asking to put it right before public comments.
Yeah, that's what you're suggesting.
Yes,
That's
put it
what-
before
yes.
public comment.
Okay,
Yes.
there we go.
Okay, anything else there? And council discussion. Any council member have an item that they would like to raise or discuss at this point?
Yes, Mayor. The other day I had a workplace violence complaint against me by Jan Harris. At that meeting, the mayor and I had a heated discussion. At that time, the whole council meeting was on videotape. After reviewing it, the chief of police and the administrator of the town said there was no workplace violence. That the mayor and I just had a simple discussion. I went to bang my fist on the table, did not, asked for a short recess, went outside, came back, shook hands, and had a productive meeting.
Thank you, Mark. That coincides with the same report that I would make as well, that there was no feeling of being threatened, and we disagreed vehemently, and we settled it. All right, well, we need a motion to accept the amended agenda for the evening.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Discussion?
No.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, well, that is as much as we have for the 6:45 to 7 o'clock session, so I would now like to call our regular meeting to order and ask if you would join me to pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. As is typical, at this point, I would like to ask if any member of council has a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on tonight's agenda.
No.
I do not.
No.
No.
Thank you all for that. And we have, Mark has asked to enter an item at this point concerning the town administrator position, and I will turn things over to Mark.
At this time, I'd like to say that Hiram has accepted our position as town manager to a 3-2 vote.
Whoa.
Well,
No, we haven't voted yet.
we did, that's right. We
No.
went through closed session and agreed on a 3-2 that we would go forward with offering Hiram the job.
Well, there was no motion made, there was no vote made in closed session. There was discussion had amongst council about terms that they would offer, potentially if there was a majority vote, would offer to Mr. Marziano for him to consider, and if Mr. Marziano would accept it, subject to town council making a motion and a vote passing on those terms. So I believe, based on the discussions, is there a motion? If you want me to try and put together a motion, I'll do my best.
Okay?
If there's a motion by council to offer the town administrator position to Hiram that includes the following terms: an annual salary of $95,000, effective upon a motion being passed and accepted by Hiram, which would be eligible for annual merit increases based on an annual performance review. Another term would be vacation pay of 4 weeks accrued annually, except that only 2 weeks may be used consecutively. Basically, you can't take a full 4 weeks off. It has to be 2-week blocks or less. Vehicle allowance of $600 per month, and a severance package of 6 months full benefits if Hiram is terminated at any time under the terms of employment with the town. He would be paid a severance package unless the town were to invoke firing Mr. Marziano for cause. Those are things that would be essentially crimes of moral turpitude, embezzlement, fraud, theft, you name those sorts of things. And on the 1-year anniversary date, Mr. Marziano would have his performance evaluated and reviewed by town council then, and consider whether he's eligible for a merit raise, etc. There would be no expiration on the employment agreement, but he would be terminable at will, with or without cause. But if it's for cause and cause is established, his severance package would not be paid. I think I've summed that up.
Yeah.
So the motion would be a motion to
So moved.
an offer of employment to Mr. Marziano for the town administrator position. Based upon that, a summary of terms.
So moved.
I second.
Is there discussion? Hearing none. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, if I could. I had to choose my words carefully, so I wrote them down. Using a professional search firm was voted down 3-2. Thus, the process was extremely lengthy, and we lost the 2 most qualified candidates that applied. We should have had a unanimous vote. The vote is now split. For this
There's been
town
no
to have,
vote. Mr. Serrato, there's been no vote. There's been no vote.
I'm sorry, I take that back. For this town to have this issue on its most important position will send a disappointing message. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there other discussion, Charlie?
I would just like to make a point that everybody knows that the two people that we lost were due to one took another job, and I can't tell you what the other one. So it wasn't because we didn't use a professional search firm.
Other discussion?
No.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
The motion carries 3-2. Next, we have moved.
Wait.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Hiram, we want to give you a chance to
Yes, sir.
say a few words.
Well, thank you very much. I'll do my best to hopefully change the opinions of some of you, but I'll strive to continue doing the work that we have been doing over the last year, and I won't let you down. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. We move the purchase property item to next on our agenda, and for that, we'll turn to Grady.
So, as I've mentioned in closed session, I'm going to be a little bit protective of some things. The question is generally presented to me was, of course, can the town acquire property? Yes. Can it acquire property to build a parking lot? Yes, assuming it meets approvals by all the governing agencies. And then the question was, I guess there's questions that have been presented to me on restricting the use of that parking lot. And I'll just leave it as, I do believe the town council, or the town, through action of the town council, can in fact place certain lawful restrictions on a public parking lot. If and when the town council gets to the point where it identifies property, acquires property, or is interested in acquiring property and wishes to then discuss in detail the sorts of restrictions that it may wish to place on that, I'll be happy at that point to help council achieve those goals with what I believe the law says you have to do. Does that make sense?
To me, it makes sense, but you have to understand the council rejected the proposal to even explore to look for beach parking on the island.
Well, I don't know if that's the case.
That's a
or not.
separate issue, but I understand. You did your homework, and I appreciate that.
Anything else?
Any other questions for Grady on that matter?
None.
I think not. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any further need for me at tonight's meeting?
Enjoy your ride home.
We hope not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And at this point, there is an opportunity for public comments. As is typical, you would begin by giving your name and address, and then having up to 3 minutes. In our first session, it would be for any matter related to items on tonight's agenda. Late in the meeting, then, there will be an opportunity for comments about anything that you wish. Do we have any public comments at this point? Neil.
Good evening. My name's Neil Gilbert, and I live at 1150 Seabourn Way, and that's in the Cape Side section of Sunset Beach. Yes, actually, I was wanting to go first because I was afraid Attorney Richardson was going to leave on us, and I've been coming here for the last 3 months, as you know, and I think Mr. Richardson could greatly help us. I have a question for you, but before I even get to that question, I want to first commend Councilman Corbett for laying out an ambitious climate change mitigation plan at the last council meeting. The plan is proactive in combating climate change and addressing ways to adapt to climate change. I'd like to thank the town council for agreeing the fact that the climate change is real and it is happening now. But that's not why I'm really here. and maybe Mr. Richardson, I'm not even sure I want to speak about the town council joining in an amicus brief with the Southern Environmental Law Center, a lawsuit against the federal government to oppose offshore drilling. Right now, I have other Brunswick Environmental Action Team members, Holden Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, Bald Head Island, Southport, Oak Island, I believe I said that, Carolina Shores, and Calabash, waiting to hear from you tonight, because they want to know what Sunset Beach is doing. They want you to be the leaders in this issue. We found out last Monday night at a Brunswick Environmental Action Team board meeting from the leaders at Oceana. They met with us. They purposely called us up to meet with us. North Carolina is ground zero when it comes to offshore drilling, seismic testing. South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida have been taken off the books. It's North Carolina. It's where we live now. And it's not, as I mentioned before, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. We have a Republican governor in South Carolina, a Democratic governor in North Carolina, all opposed to offshore drilling. And all the way from New Jersey to Florida, every governor, doesn't matter what party they're associated with, they're against offshore drilling. And this being a coastal county, and 14 cities, municipalities in this county are against offshore drilling. And we need to make sure that this doesn't happen, because this is our livelihood. This is why we live here. You have a resolution 5-0 opposing offshore drilling. I praise you for that. But we got 16 towns in South Carolina that have lawsuits. One reason why that's off the books now in South Carolina, because these towns have joined with all these other environmental groups. So I don't know where you stand. I know where you stand, and I know what you like to do. I just don't know if you legally can do that. And that's why I guess, Mr. Attorney Richardson, maybe, am I allowed to ask a question? Because I know this is public comments, and I know from reading your, in this case, it's an exception, because we're at an urgent situation now. We're talking 5 applications have been filed. 4 of them are not even companies from within the United States. They want to proceed. And that could be any time in a matter of a month or 2. And big things are going to happen in this month in Brunswick County, starting with next Monday night at in Little River, where the Beat's having a meeting at pizza place, Papa's Pizza. Tom's appropriately called this the pissed off pizza party, because people who live here are PO'd about this. So
Please finish up if you would.
okay, so I'm asking, where do we stand? What can we do? Can you do anything? We got to do something.
Thank you, Neil.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Do we have other public comments? Please.
Can you hear me?
That sounds good.
I'm Carol Church. I live 515 Shoreline Drive on the mainland. And my comments are about the parking on the island. Oh, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so I've lived here 25 years because I love the beach. And we have the most beautiful beach in the United States and one of the top 10 in the world. And the pristine air and the wonderful salt breeze are all essential for my particular health issues, which I will not go into, but I will tell you that I am handicapped and that I need to have a place to park on Main Street on the island where I can walk over to the beach at a place other than the gazebo, which is congested with people and various fumes. I'm sure I'm not the only person who has respiratory problems and who has a handicap that needs handicap parking access over there on Main Street. It's very limited parking now. I'm greatly concerned about the issue that has been raised to try to prevent parking on Main Street. For me, it would prevent my having access to the beach. For many residents and visitors, it would mean not having access to areas of the beach that are the most pristine and the least congested. I expect you've all been over there in July when it's so crowded at the gazebo and the pier that you can hardly walk. If you're like I am, you can hardly breathe. But if you go down to 10th or 12th or the inlet or 40th, you have nice open spaces, and there should be access to those spaces. Under North Carolina law, the beach is public domain, and we have all these nice boardwalks to get there. But if we don't have parking that is accessible to the boardwalks, then you are in effect keeping people from getting on the public domain. So I hope you're going to nip this into the bud before it gets any further along. I know it was raised as early as 2013, after the people on the island were granted everything they asked regarding parking restrictions, and 80 plus no parking signs went up, and 28 streets that did have parking allowed before no longer did. That was at a time when the council should have been providing more parking for the more people coming over to the island on the new bridge. It was not done. So there is a new parking lot, but for people like me, that doesn't work. And for people who need closer access to the beach, it doesn't work. So I'm letting you know of my concerns and why. And I don't know what all's going on over there. I don't know if y'all do. But the people living on the mainland legally should have easy access to the beach. It's public domain. It belongs to me as much as it belongs to people who own oceanfront property. It belongs to you as much as it does to them. If you prevent parking on the mainland, on Main Street, you're opening yourselves up to a class action lawsuit from the people of North Carolina and the people of the American Disabilities Act, because you will be restricting their access to public beach. I hope you'll take this under serious consideration if you have not already. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Do we have other public comments? Please.
Charles Kazwanis, Sea Trail Drive, West, Sunset Beach. 1998, I moved from Connecticut down here. I love the beach. My wife loves the beach. In the state of Connecticut, they have 109 miles of beach. 9 miles are public. Everybody that owns beach property in Connecticut has a berm going out at the high tide mark. You cannot walk the beach. So we came here. My wife has 2 hips, and I'm an avid fresh saltwater surf casting fisherman. I go to Tubbs Inlet to fish. That means that I will no longer be able to go there with my wife, who reads her book, puts up her beach chair, and I do the fishing. And I'm on the beach virtually every other day in the summer and in the winter. If you prevent us from parking on the main street, that means that we'll have to use the area where the gazebo is. You know how long the beach is here. It's 2.5 miles one side and 1.5 on the other. My wife can't traverse that beach. That's why I moved here to Sunset Beach, because I love the ocean. And I will continue to love the ocean. So the people that live on the beach, I understand. With the sidewalks coming in, there might be some restrictions. I've seen mailboxes, no parking signs that were not official no parking signs, and it's getting limited more and more. I would like to see you allow parking on Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Other public comments? Please.
Karen Joseph, 915 Sandpiper Bay Drive. First of all, congratulations, Hiram. I could not agree more with the two previous speakers. Parking has been an issue forever in Sunset Beach. And at the community meeting, when it was brought up by Mr. Tennant, those of you who were there could tell from the noise in the room that the 40 or so people who were there are not in favor of eliminating parking on Main Street. Ms. Harris indicated that you are working on a plan. Usually a plan has multiple parts. The only part I've heard is eliminate parking on Main Street. I would hope that this council does not take any action without first presenting the entire plan to the community. And if you're looking to buy property, that was brought up when Ms. Harris was on the parking committee years ago. And the people on the island who had an empty lot next to them said, you better not. Having a parking lot requires all kinds of expenses. And in regard to the additional parking signs, I know there are illegal parking signs. When I was on the council, we had the chief of police get rid of all the illegal signs. So I would hope that you will do that before the season starts. And one last thing, I think it was the last council, but don't quote me, considered hiring a professional firm to come up with a parking plan. I think it was a $50,000 price tag. But again, don't quote me. I hope you'll consider doing that. We have the money, and perhaps it can bring this to an end one way or another. Because to keep batting this ball around is not getting anybody anywhere. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Please.
I don't remember having any discussion about banning parking on Main Street. How did this happen? Can you explain that to me?
Well,
Who
actually,
who thought of this? And it's out of control. And no one's ever discussed about banning parking on Main Street. And all of a sudden, someone raised the issue, and we ran off with it. And I'm totally confused.
Mayor, I'd like to ask.
Totally confused.
I'd like to see if there are any other public comments, and then when there are no more, I would like to say a word about the concerns about parking. Do we have any other public comments tonight, or this first opportunity? Okay, well, our rules and regulations say that we don't typically respond, but we may respond if perhaps a situation like this comes up where there would be benefit to the audience. So I'll say just a couple of things, and then if any other council member would like to add, subtract, or modify, please do so.
That's already on the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it is,
You bring it up then.
although it's a very restricted item on the agenda. Hiram, would you prefer that I not say anything at this point and we just?
We can discuss it during E4 if you'd like, because I know you feel it's kind of restrictive, but it is open to the topic. It actually directly answers Councilman Serrato's question as well. And the purpose of that discussion was to find an answer to a question from the last meeting and then proceed with the discussion further. So it's as open as you want it to be at that time, or you know.
Okay, well, that would certainly seem to be appropriate, that we wait until that time.
We can wait and cover it very
then
well.
That's
we
fine,
all,
Mr.
and
Mayor.
you all can address the issue at that point. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. Next are our reports, and we'll begin with the town administrator report, pages 3 and 4 in the agenda packet, and Hiram.
Sorry. I have something in my throat. First of all, I'd like to bring up something that's not in the report. If you'll notice out in the hall and a few other rooms, the lighting contract's been started. They've done the fire department 1, most of fire department 2, public works, and most of town hall over the weekend and today, switching over to the LED lights. So that work's in progress and almost completed. GSATS has a TAC meeting in a few weeks on February 8th. I guess it's this week, actually, now, by the time I wrote this. At the last TCC meeting, we did discuss the proposal for the turn lane, the deceleration right-in lane for Sandpiper Bay. It's still under review at DOT, but the TCC decided to push it forward to the TAC for them to consider at their February 8th meeting. So hopefully DOT will have completed their review of the project by then, and we can know whether they're going to proceed with the DA funds for that or not.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to attend that? You usually do not.
I attend the TCC meeting.
Okay.
The Councilman Serrato is our representative
Are
to the
you going to
TAC.
attend?
Yeah, there's a meeting on the 8th, isn't
Yes.
there? Yeah.
And you'll be attending?
Yep.
Okay. I'm the alternative. I don't have to go then.
No.
No.
Let's see, we have had a communication from Mr. J.R. Robinson regarding his family cemetery at the end of Live Oak where it meets Seaside. He is requesting that the council look into a few options regarding that cemetery. His claim is that the roads are built over top of the cemetery. I know that they're still looking to see if there were any graves under those roads or not. Those roads would have been approved back in the early 80s, late 70s, sometime in that period. But he's presented 2 options that he wishes the council to look at, either removing the roads or purchasing the property. So if y'all would like to consider that, he's requested that y'all consider that to his proposal in his email, and we can put that on disposition of directives for future discussion. He is working with the college at ECU to look at the remains and things like that, and they'll be back in the springtime, so I'm sure he'll probably rather discuss it sooner than later.
Hiram, do we know for sure there's bodies underneath the roads?
They haven't done, from my understanding, they haven't done the, I don't know what the process is called, but where they take the LiDAR, sonic, or the sonar or whatever to look to see if there's anything under the pavement or not. He's just going based off an old deed description that described the size of the cemetery, and it's much smaller than what was in that original deed.
Yeah, Hiram, there must be some history to this, and I'm sure there must be records at the county too. There has to be some history why this all occurred.
Right.
And we need to understand that, because I've been down there and looked at the area. It's just patch of land.
Right, and I've asked...
And it's not very well maintained.
And I've asked for an original survey, if they've got one from the time of when the subdivision would have been first started. We're still going through our records to see if we have anything on file, but it's such an old subdivision that most of our records don't date that far back.
What's early 60s?
I'm not sure exactly when the roads were platted. That's the issue, is I don't know if the roads went in before they were approved or if they came in after, and where their location would have been in relation to what would have been surveyed off for that cemetery. So like I said, he's going by a meets and bounds description and a general size of like 12,000 square feet, which right now he's claiming about 7,000 square feet. So clearly there's either some miscommunication or some parts of it were already deeded off and removed. We're not sure, so that's what we're trying to dig up some information on in order to facilitate your discussion.
Would it be possible, as you're doing that research, to come up with an estimate of what each of those options would cost? And there may be some other options that go into it also, but.
Yeah, we can try to
And,
give a
and,
ballpark.
and if you're talking about moving the road, closing the road, stuff like that, you have what kind of options and what is the impact on the neighborhood
Right.
to do that?
Yeah, we're looking at all that, but we'll see if we can do the cost factor too.
And Hiram, do you anticipate that you will give a recommendation to council between option 1 and option 2?
I'll do my best.
Or option 3?
Option 1 and option 2 are kind of very set. I mean, I would like to first discover if there actually are any bodies under the road. That may dissolve the need for either of these options. And we won't know that for sure. I think they're going to do their testing this spring. But we should at least do all the research and dig up and come up to a viable solution just in case there are bodies under there. So until we know that for sure, I'm not really prepared to definitively say A or B. But we'll do the research and figure it out.
Okay, thank you. Council, and please continue with your report.
Spoke with the county tax office about meeting to discuss the questions that were submitted by the council. They said best for them, due to the revow taking a little bit longer, would be March 19th meeting. If that's good for y'all, I mean, that'd be the earliest. So, and that's right in the start of our budget process. We can still push it back further if you want to, into April. I think there's like a scheduling conflict with one of the council members for that date.
Yeah, I would ask council if the 19th is a morning meeting, if council has any feeling that this speaker would be better at an evening meeting, which is usually better attended, or if Tuesday the 19th is satisfactory.
This is for the speaker for the
Tax office.
tax specialist?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I would prefer that be at night. I think it's a lot of information that the people should know.
Yeah. I think it should be an evening meeting topic also.
All right, then perhaps we could be thinking about the first Monday meeting in April and checking that date with their schedule.
Right.
April 1st. April 1st.
April.
Yeah, April 1st, we'll talk about taxes.
Yeah.
If they're not amenable to an evening meeting because they're government workers like us,
They don't work overtime.
well, I'll try to talk them in and see if
That's
they're
fine.
willing to. But if they're not amenable to that, would the 19th still be okay, or you want to push it?
There's room on the 19th, so that would be fine.
Okay, I'll stress to them that we'd like to have an evening meeting for better
Yeah,
participation.
we'd like to have more people attend.
Spoke with Alan from Waste Industries regarding when we told y'all recently they're talking about changing up the schedule for collection. They're now pushing that back. And the best they're looking for is they might know by March, but if they don't know by March, they're not going to try changing the schedule this year. That's when they were going to flop all the islands from Wednesdays to either Thursdays or Tuesdays for all the coastal communities. They decided to push that back off, so while they relook at a few things for the county. So we'll know more hopefully by March. And finally, Living Shoreline's almost completely wrapped up. All that remains is the educational kiosk and the planting of the native grasses come early summer. So we've submitted that to Duke. energy about the grant. They have submitted back to us that everything looks good on their part. They just want to make sure when we wrap up the project that we let them know.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Could you, when we wrap up the project, also provide us a sort of detailed breakdown of what the cost was, what the cost went for?
Yes,
who got
we
paid
got
and-
that pretty much figured out right now. It's just a matter of getting all the invoices and making sure that we've had everything dotted and crossed. So we can actually get you something prior to that. But if you'd rather wait for the kiosk, that's fine too. It's just, right now, it's minus the kiosk and grasses.
Then I'd say go ahead, give it to us when you have it, because we can calculate the kiosk in pretty much. I mean, and that would affect sort of our thinking about other living shoreline locations and projects to get a sense of what this one actually cost us
That works.
and how it works. Thank you.
Have it by the end of the week. And got a copy of your budget calendar in your packet, multiple places. And that's all I've got.
Any other questions on that report?
Thank you, Hiram.
Thank you.
Well, we'll continue with Hiram for planning and inspections, page 5 in your agenda packet.
And y'all get a weekly from me that has most of this data too. And I've talked enough. Is there any questions regarding planning and inspections operations?
I have none.
Seeing none.
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 Thank you, Hiram.
Thank y'all.
And next will be our finance report from Tara, page 6 in your agenda packet.
Does anybody have any questions about the budget to actual report?
I should say page 6 and 7. The information is mostly on page 7.
7, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Any questions?
I have sort of an indirect question.
Okay.
You know, when we're talking about the taxes that we get in, the accommodation taxes, you know, there's an increasing number of, you know, private home rentals through like Airbnb and VRBO, those types of things. Do we have a accurate tracking and accounting of that, of which houses are doing that and that we get,
Not,
we get our fair share?
not at this time.
Yeah.
We actually have somebody that reached out to us that actually offers that service, because other than me going door to door and finding out if they rent or not, it's really hard. We kind of, you know, rely on people to be honest. But there is a firm that offers this service now because it is a need for a lot of communities now. So it's something that I just started to look into.
Okay. I mean, the New Hanover County and the Wilmington Star News had a report of the large amount of income that New Hanover and adjacent counties, including us, was getting from that. And part of that report said that Airbnb claims to accurately track at least who Airbnb is using in that.
Right.
Well, John, I'd like to say something. Since I have several houses on VRBO, and they do keep a track for you. You tell them what the accommodation tax is. They deduct it from cost, and that's then sent to you by check to send to the town.
The responsibility still lands on the property owner.
Sure.
Okay, so if a property owner doesn't report it, then we don't get it. Okay, thank you.
Tara, is what you're saying is that it's an honor system? I mean, if I own a house on the island and I rent it out and the person gives me $4,000 cash, it's the honor system?
To an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also is if you own a house on Twisted Oak Lane or the mainland,
Anywhere,
Sea Trail,
John,
anywhere
it's
else,
anywhere.
not
It's-
just the island. So it applies
No,
to the whole
it's
community.
anywhere.
We
I
have
mean,
lots of rentals.
if you're not reporting it, it's also tax evasion because you have to pay sales tax on it as well. So, I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that that's kind of where this service comes in, is to help us sort through that as well. Like I said, I am looking into it. Budget season has come in full force, so it's just one of the things. The other thing that I can report that's good news is that the audit was submitted in January to the LGC. I am awaiting a response from them, and we can't really give a report on it until the LGC says that they accept it. But we have no findings, which is a really positive thing. So, is there any other questions?
Good. Good job.
Thanks.
No findings.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. And next, our Public Works Report by Dustin, page 8 in your packet.
The sidewalk's coming along pretty good. There's roughly about 1,600 feet that they have put in so far. There's roughly approximately 1,300 more feet to be done on the west end, and that project on that side of the island will be completed.
Are they ahead of schedule, Dustin? They've had good weather.
We'll know more when they get through with the west.
Okay.
We'll know a little bit more on how it's going to be tight on the deadline. It's going to be tight.
Is that tightness that they're going to try to do the east end also before
Yes.
before
Before
Memorial
season.
Day?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We're
Good.
shooting for that.
Good.
Also, I'm waiting on the engineer drawings. I'm looking for them by any day to get started on the other 2 beach accesses that we are going to redo on the east end. 2nd Street, the repair work is completed to it, the beach access, and all the upgrades to it has been done. I am also working with CAMA on the east end at the emergency access to get it straightened out. So once I hear back from them on what we have to do, get a permit to straighten that out, we'll proceed with that.
How are you working with CAMA as far as the ramps extending out farther to the ocean?
Well, we're waiting on the state on that.
State?
Yeah, the ERC approved it and they sent it over to the state for their approval. And I haven't heard anything else if it's passed or not.
I haven't heard either. It's up to the state to make the final decision on that ruling.
We'll get that answer this spring, do you think?
We're hoping. I don't know if it'll be in time for these 2 walkways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions for Dustin? Thank you.
Thanks, Dustin.
Did you have more report?
No, I'm filling in for Rich.
Yeah, Rich Baker's out sick.
Yeah, he's out
Gotcha.
sick, so I'm filling in for him.
Well, then you're still up, and we'll turn to page 9 on stormwater.
The work at 240 Magnolia has been completed, the bulkhead has been put in, and the bioretention trench with the pipe has also been installed at 240. We've cleaned out several ditches on Kings Trail, Kings Court, Azalea Circle, and they're in the process of now digging the ditch between Shoreline Drive East and Azalea Circle between the houses now. Process of doing that.
Great. Questions?
Have none.
Sure. We had one of our citizens ask how many storm drains we have. Have you sort of
There-
started taking a look at that yet?
There's roughly between 90 to 100.
That's throughout Sunset Beach,
Oh, no, just the island.
just the island. We also have them on the mainland?
Yes,
Okay.
there's over 200
Yeah,
altogether.
Yeah, and specifically, the individual asked about educating people on how to clear the storm drains. Is it anything more than just taking a rake and picking up all the straw and trash and dirt that's on top of it?
That's it. Just
Put it in a
see-
trash can?
That's it. Just if you see something on top of the grates, just go out there and rake it up and put it in the bag.
Okay. And there was, the third question was the drop inlet bags. I assume those are those little sandbags that we at one time put around them. We found out in July and during the storms that they did not work during torrential rains.
These are actual bags that goes inside of the catch basin.
Okay.
That's that the grate sets on and holds it in place for the sediment to get caught in it.
Are we
So
still
they have-
using that, Dustin?
They have been taken out right now.
And the reason being?
Or there was some issues with the flooding that was going on.
We made the decision to do the record amount of rain we were having, that the
Yeah.
streets were just flooding
Yeah.
too often.
Yeah.
It was causing property damage. So we took, during this, the hurricane season, we had them removed, and we're waiting to figure out what the council wants to do during budget season, whether we should proceed back and try to figure out either an alternating time frame, like winter they're in, summer they're out, because as we saw, we just had massive amounts of water in the streets. And when we took
Okay.
those out, I mean, the water drained.
Yeah, the water drain
Almost immediately.
when to get out, because what happens
Yeah.
is you
When-
get a paste or anything like that on the bags, it slows the water down.
We're
But
taking
when we
it,
do,
I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
when we do take them out though, and you did get the rains, then everything just washes straight down into
Yes.
the marshes
Yeah.
and that.
We're looking for
Right.
other solutions that might be able to make a happy medium.
Okay,
But the options right now are flooding or not flooding.
okay.
Dustin, can I ask you a question? Why can't you put the bags at the end of the pipes or the lines? Instead of at the grates, you put them at the end of the streets or where they go into the marshes?
Because some of your pipes are different, unless you would get a bigger bag
Mhm.
to go over the pipe, because you got 24-inch pipes, you got 15, 18-inch pipes. It'd be sort of hard to, and plus the tide going in and out would, cause some of the pipes, when the high tide comes in, the pipes are underwater.
Okay.
And one more, could the town send a response to the citizen answering those questions?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Other questions?
You wearing another hat?
Councilman Corbett, would you be getting
you,
us,
Dustin.
Thanks,
forwarding us
Dustin.
that email or the email or the questions?
I'll forward it to you. I thought you might have been on it, but I will forward it.
I'll double check. I don't remember seeing it. So.
I'll forward it to you. Not everybody was on that. It was,
All right, and Paul's going to give us the report from the fire department on pages 10 and 11 in your packet.
All right, I have a couple updates other than what's in the packet. And then if you have any specific questions on the packet information, I'll certainly answer that. Some of you may or may not have heard, we received a couple complaints about the clubhouse at Angel's Trace, the Angel's Trace Clubhouse. Condition, safety, that type of thing. We received several letters. We made contact with coastal communities and scheduled a time to go there. Deputy Fire Chief and Fire Inspector Cook went and did a fire inspection with the property owner. We found several areas that were not boarded up. Some trespassing signs weren't up. So we sent a letter to them, and actually within a day or two the building was resecured. No trespassing signs were put up. So it's, as far as the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code, they're back in compliance. So we notified them. We sent letters to the original complainants letting them know. And we also let everybody know that the no trespassing signs are posted to warn unauthorized personnel from entering the property. So as far as the information they gave us, nobody's supposed to be on the property, stay away. And but as far as the fire prevention code, it's good to go.
Paul, is there any way that the town can force these people to tear down that building because it is a fire hazard and a safety hazard?
Based off of the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code, at this time, it's not out of violation. They fixed the violations that we know.
You mean that building, the violations have been repaired?
And
there's nothing the town can do about that?
As far as from my side of things with the Fire Prevention Code, they've corrected and met they're in compliance with the violations that we noted.
If I may, real quick, also from the building regulations wise, boarding up is a satisfactory abatement. There's no buildings constructed nearby. The entirety of Jaguar's Lair is listed as also being off limits to non-residents and owners of the properties there. There's no utilities connected to the building. So at what the fire code looks at and what the building code looks at, as long as they secure the property and post it, they meet the codes. We don't have any local regulations that allow us to supersede those at this time. We have nothing adopted. Furthermore, I hesitate to go out on a limb there. If there was a house next door and there were kids in the area and that kind of thing, I think the situation would be different, and we could sit there and say this is an immediate threat to life safety. But as there's no construction in the area, there's no occupancy nearby, we don't really have a case to make for immediate danger to health and life and safety, because people aren't supposed to be out there. They meet, by boarding up, they have met the minimum requirements of state regulation.
Would it be illegal on the town's part if the town had an ordinance that addressed that kind of issue?
If we had an ordinance, it would have to be placed in the UDO, especially since Jaguar Lair is in the ETJ. And then you're going to be faced with the situation of if they don't comply, we're going to be spending town tax dollars to remove stuff in the county. So that's why most communities only put that in their town ordinances instead of their development codes. But yeah, we could definitely adopt an unsafe building code.
Is that something that we should explore? I don't know. I'm just raising the question.
The department's actually in the process of exploring that idea. It's a very complicated legal matter that is something that we would explore, and we'd like Grady's input before we even approached planning board with it.
John?
Would that building and that location, and even potentially the owners, be receptive to a public service proposal to use it for a fire training location? In other words, a controlled, a training fire?
I wouldn't use it for required structure training. They're based off of.
They wouldn't be able to make entry into that building. They'd only be able to do hose work from the outside, and I'm not sure that.
Okay, so there's no benefit to do it? No. Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that would meet the training
I'll drop
qualifications
that
for the
one.
state either, so.
Other questions?
I'm fine.
Thank you.
All right, one other update, quick. It's good news, and I received a letter in the mail this morning, and I thought I'd share it with you because we all need a little good news on occasion. Chief Osmeyer, on behalf of my son and I, a million thank yous. Cannot begin to express the gratitude we have for you and your staff. Lieutenant Graham went out of his way to not only install our car seat, but took the time to educate me on safety education with the help of firefighter Rockledge and firefighter Pulley's assistance. We're proud of the service you and your staff provide. Sincerely, the Griffin family. So,
nice.
Every now and again, it's nice to hear good things.
Good job. Thank
Any
you.
questions on the data? Or
Just wanted to show everybody the things that it's going to be hung at the beach.
Well,
we're going to discuss
we're
that.
going to get to it
That's
in
right.
meeting.
Okay.
You're going to see me a couple
Yes.
more times.
You're coming back.
Yes. Thank you, Paul. And Ken, for our police department report?
Never seen it.
Good evening. In addition to the packet that you have in front of you, I have a couple updates as well, but I'll answer any questions about the information that's in the packet if you have those. First, I want to make you aware that we currently are occupying space at Fire Station Number 1 for 2 solid weeks. We were fortunate enough to have an instructor from the North Carolina Justice Academy come to us to instruct us what they call the Police Law Institute. Gives our officers updates on new case law, new changes in the statutes to keep us sharp, to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can. There's officers from Sunset and several other agencies that are in attendance there. Officer Steve Bullock, who is acting as an interim supervisor right now while we have an officer on light duty, made a mention of an incident that happened a few weeks ago where there was a suicidal individual in Sunset Beach that was armed with a knife. Our officers responded to this call and were able to successfully talk the person into putting the knife down and complying with them so that they could render the assistance that was required. And he made documentation for both of their personnel files to make sure that they were commended for a job well done. That's a situation that I'm sure you're aware that could have ended very differently. And the officer did a fabulous job. Officer Britt Buell and one of our newer officers, Brooke Pittman, were the officers that were involved in that case. The last thing, last week, Thursday, I believe it was Thursday night, I joined the Sandpiper Bay community and spoke to a group of roughly 50-plus individuals who are interested in starting a community watch in that community. We currently have community watch in Sea Trail, and it's been very successful. I shared with the Sandpiper community some of the things that we've done there, and hopes that we can start a neighborhood watch in Sandpiper very soon. Unless there's any questions from council, that's all I have.
Chief, I'd just like you to acknowledge what I said earlier about the workplace violence and you reviewing that video and saw nothing in that video that would contend with workplace
There's
violence?
nothing there that would raise to the level of a criminal complaint. The incident was documented, as Councilman Benton mentioned, spoke with all the parties that were involved, and everything that that now our town administrator, Hiram, and I looked at. There was nothing on the video. It was crystal clear, as Councilman Benton said, that the initial complaint was unfounded. As far as a complaint of workplace violence, that was forwarded on to Hiram. But nothing rose to the level of a criminal complaint.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
One quick comment.
Yes,
I
sir.
got several people who provided feedback on your talk, on the crime prevention talk at Sandpiper. They're
Yes, sir.
very much appreciative of that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please continue.
Absolutely.
And,
Ken and Paul, if you would both forward council's appreciation to your staff who've been involved in these important events, and the appreciation of the community as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay.
Okay, we will move to old business, and we'll start with climate change mitigation, and turn to John. This coincides with pages 14 to 17 in your packet.
okay. At the last meeting, we discussed putting together a resolution to somewhat formalize our climate change mitigation program, which is a broad plan starting now, organizing some of the things we're doing now and looking out into the future. There is a draft resolution. You've all had a chance to look at it on council. The recommendation is to adopt this resolution, and that gives the council's approval for these programs. Also in the packet, there's an update as of February 4th today with 4 new items that are added on. It's just part of completing or increasing the inventory of the activities that we have going on. At the last meeting, we said that we wanted to work with and work with and collaborate with regional environmental groups. That's added as item I. Item J was adding in the sidewalk project on the island and Main Street. The pervious concrete is a important step in helping to control some of the stormwater runoff during rains. Item K is adding in that we approve the contract for conversion of the lighting in the town buildings to LED. That is ongoing now. At least you see it out there in the hallway. And that will result in both financial savings and savings of energy. And then item L is that the town and I'm anticipating that the town would formally approve a resolution adopting this plan. And so that's where it stays. So I move that the town adopt the resolution on page 15.
Great,
Second.
thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Any word changes?
No. I look at this as a basic framework, but this would be a tremendous task for the ERC committee once it's established, to finite it in more detail and hopefully more programs. My only concern is, and I wrote y'all a letter in the Beacon, is what we do now affects what we're going to be doing in the future. And I still have major concerns regarding the dredging of tidal creeks that reportedly by scientists will increase flooding and erosion. So I just want to be concerned and cautious of that.
Okay.
Sometimes we send out mixed signals.
Is there other discussion?
No, Johnny.
Just,
Nice
well,
job.
one point of clarification. The idea is that not all of this would be necessarily the Environmental Resource Committee responsibility. Things like the stormwater, we have a plan, we have a 10-year program, we have funding, we have a manager that runs that. that's incorporated into the project. And there are different elements of this that are council actions, different elements that would fall into DPW action as it goes on through there. So it's not just the ERC that is involved with this.
No,
It's
I think
heavily
that's
a
understood.
council responsibility to make sure that we are consistently moving forward in this area.
Okay, thank you. Other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The second item under old business relates to the Environmental Resource Committee that we've just mentioned. In closed session, we met with Grady, who has looked over our latest draft to make sure that everything there is in order. We've agreed to make some minor tightening of the language there, no substantive changes, but a desire to wait until those changes have been made before having the council vote. So that item will be back on the agenda at our second meeting in February for passing, and then following that, an advertisement will be put out to call for those interested in serving on the Environmental Resource Committee. Council, anything to add to that?
So I have to make a motion to table it?
We can do that. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have already dealt with the purchase property item, which brings us back to the Main Street parking discussion. And Hiram and Dustin both have a part of this, please.
Yes, sir. On January 7th, Councilman Benton made a request to the council to review the process by which the town could request NCDOT to remove on-street parking on Main Street. Both Dustin and I made multiple attempts to contact them. They finally called Dustin back. He gave them the few questions that we wanted, and we asked for it in writing. So what I've done here is I've cut and pasted their email replies into the packet for you. In brief, we did ask, what is the process the town would need to go through in order for NCDOT to declare Main Street no parking? Basically, that results in us coming to the decision to do that, doing a resolution to request them of that, and then they'll basically tell us that yes or no, and if it's yes, we're putting up no parking signs, every...
There'll be no parking signs roughly every 100 feet, what they said.
And we also went ahead and asked what the feasibility of a drainage ditch / swell on the south side of Main Street, because that's been a topic of discussion for this. And their reply to that was that it's not feasible due to the drainage pipe that's already installed there to cause complications for that. Plus, Dustin, I think it caused complications for some of the driveways already installed.
Yeah, 'cause you got some of the houses that are uphill already, and you try to put a swell in, you would have to put pipes. It'd be hard.
So with a swell, it requires piping?
Well, you got dips. You put a swell in, and you got these low-profile cars or other cars that's low, and you try to go up them hills, go up to your house in the driveway, you'll have a dip there. Then you got the sidewalk that you got to get over to.
Well, can't we just do the swells in the 20-foot easement where those houses just get 20 feet, right, Hiram?
Well, it's not that. It's there's a drainage pipe in the ground there.
Yeah, there's catch basins
right
out
now.
there.
Mm-hmm.
That if you install a swell, it's basically the pipes will not work effectively if you install a swell, is what DOT is saying in this email from their engineers.
Have you considered consulting with North Carolina Coastal Federation, who has quite a few innovative ideas on how to handle stormwater? Not just your typical engineering swell. I think more than a year ago they met jointly with the council at that time, and with the planning board, and had some very, very good ideas. And I would really hope to see some work done working with them to work on this process.
And we can explore that if the council wants to. What we were doing right here was talking just to NCDOT about their right-of-way and what they thought about those ideas.
I agree. I also believe I commented on Saturday's community meeting that that was premature because of, I know the mayor is working on a more comprehensive look at parking and Main Street. So I think that was really premature. It's good to have an answer, but it's gotten a lot of people upset.
Well, I just want to point out that the council did ask us to do this.
Right, and
So
in
that's
regards
why.
to parking, it was for,
Somewhere around,
yeah, go ahead.
let me get my
Go
2
ahead,
cents
John.
in. And I think maybe we were going in the same direction there, but it was simply a question to NCDOT of what are the procedures to go through there. There is no discussion, no consensus, no attempt to ban parking on Main Street. It's just checking a box to make sure we had the answer, so when we are discussing the overall parking situation, how would that be affected? And the answer was given to us. It's something that we could ask for, but there's nothing even pointing in the direction of the town council wanting to ban parking on Main Street that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and the issue I brought up that day was to find out about the swells, storm water, and if you have to completely ban parking to get the swells in. Well, we find that out, we cannot do both. So there's nothing in this council is going to vote against parking on Main Street.
And also, if we can contact the Coastal Federation and looking at that, but if we do any work in DOT's right away, we gotta get approval for us to do that work. So it'd be left up to them, yes or no, also on that.
And perhaps this is a time that I could just say a word about this. I mentioned before about my own view that we ought to be thinking comprehensively about this, so that we don't do one thing that we find later cuts off other things that we would like to do. Parking on Main Street is certainly an issue, and public safety is the most important issue related to that. We are adding the new sidewalk already, of course. We are looking for ways to add to our ability to handle stormwater runoff without running it directly back into the marsh or waterways, which sort of defeats the purpose of part of it. There are other questions as well. The concentration of people by the gazebo, the fact that all of us in Sunset Beach contribute to the cost of maintaining the beach, and some of that cost is created by day trippers who pay nothing to come and park and sometimes leave remains that we're responsible for paying. The other issue that we have talked most about on council is a belief that right now things are not fair with regard to availability of parking and payment for parking for mainland Sunset Beachers. Everybody pays for the upkeep of the beach, and while not everyone sees this issue the same way, there has been a lot of chatter, a lot of conversation about finding a way so that we could either, well, and or guarantee parking for mainland Sunset Beach residents, and that was what initiated the look to see if adding parking would assist with that, and to assure that there is free parking available so that mainlanders would no longer have to pay to park. That's a whole lot of issues to try to put together in one proposal, but that's sort of where things are right now. Trying to explore various ideas to see how best we could put things together. The comments that 3 of you made tonight are very helpful. I mean, those are exactly the kinds of things that we should be hearing to make sure that we don't, given how many factors there are, overlook something important. So those comments are very appreciated. I think at some point, if this item is pursued, there would certainly be either a special meeting of council, or perhaps we would dedicate most of a regular meeting to conversation about parking, and try to get as many comments as we can from the community. And finally, just in thinking in terms of this comprehensively, the other thing I want to note is we also have some parking problems on the mainland. Problems at Town Park, problems at Town Hall, problems with the concert series, and although most of our attention has gone to beach parking problems, council recognizes that it's important to equally important to look at the problems on the mainland. Well, of course, that will bring us into a new series of problems. That discussion is not received as much attention yet. It's a little further down the road, I would say, but hopefully not much further down the road, that we think of parking issues in Sunset Beach and trying to do the best that we can do all the way around. Ideas that you have, concerns that you have, anything like that is more than appreciated by council. Charlie.
At Saturday's meeting, and again tonight, safety was issued, was one of the reasons to ban parking. And if we could have the chief compile a list of incidents on Main Street, pedestrians injured, bicycle car accidents, that type of thing, it would probably help us.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah.
Okay, and anything else for Hiram or Dustin on this issue? All right, thank you both.
Thank you, Dustin.
All right, we're going to turn to Paul for the next 2 items. The last item in old business will be a discussion of the Life Ring program.
All right, the Life Ring program, we've had this, I think last 2 months we've had different conversations about the Life Ring program, and the agenda item there pretty much lays it out. I have one update from what I typed in the report here, that the North Carolina Department of Wildlife has given us written approval to put a Life Ring at the dock in the ramp. So that's good to go with your approval. I added a couple pictures in the agenda packet item on kind of where locations are. The one good thing, and Taro backed me up on this, I think, with we don't have to ask for any additional funds, new allocations, money within the budget. In the accommodations fund, we have it to take care of putting these up to start the program.
What's the total amount?
I'm hoping just under $3,500. I've got 4 different quotes. I'm going to finalize all that stuff with them, but less than $3,500.
In the discussions, we also mentioned the possibility of putting some of these life rings around the pier Did you talk to the owners there,
Uh,
or?
I haven't gotten confirmation on that yet, but we're gonna have that. We have several of the poles that Dustin has in place already, so.
So we actually don't have to ask them,
we
we don't
might-
have to put them on the pier?
We might not put any
Okay.
on the pier unless maybe we can work with them to put one at the end up top or something like that. But overall, we'll have enough locations.
Paul, would you need from us a motion for you to proceed?
Yeah, I believe so, because originally it was a agenda item.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to proceed with the Life Ring program as described by and documented by Paul.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And any further discussion on that item? Charlie?
Yeah, Chief, the ring would hang on this
Yeah, there's a.
hook, this,
Yeah, we can pass this around too. This is just a hook that's gonna get screwed to the post and.
Yeah.
It is
And this
stainless
is-
steel, Chief?
and the ring,
Stainless steel?
I don't think so.
And are you going to put Sunset Beach or any
Yes.
identifier on that?
It's stainless steel.
No, we're not putting the Sunset Beach logo label on it. We're not gonna make them souvenirs per se.
Thank you.
Okay.
Maybe
Call
might
911.
are they,
have third graders paint call 911 on there, so
Yeah.
it's not souvenir type thing.
are, just that would be hanging? There's, no rope?
Correct, just this.
Those would be clearly identifiable, so if any of our citizens happen to see one of those walking down the street off the island, that they could report to the appropriate authorities that
Yeah, so
a life ring is on the move.
yeah, if anybody sees the life rings on the move, contact Beach Patrol, the fire department, police department, and we'll get them back. We hope not to have that issue, and we want to keep them on the beach and near the water's edge as much as possible. We don't want to have to take them down at a certain time of day, and then if somebody needs the life ring after we take them down.
So Chief, you'll keep them up overnight?
That's the current plan, and we're going to monitor things, beach patrol, law enforcement, and monitor things, how it goes initially, and adapt if we need to.
Okay. Good job.
Could you demonstrate an effective throw to save Tara right now?
No, because I might break that TV.
Good answer.
Tara's go, what?
Good. Okay, any other questions about this? Great, and if, we'll move into new business, and Paul is first
Thank
up
you.
there with, I think, a real creative program.
Did y'all vote?
Did we
Yes.
vote?
Did we
No,
vote?
we seconded.
We seconded
We
it.
seconded it, we had discussion. I'm sensing there was a vote, but none really.
Not right.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Please.
All right, the next agenda item for you to consider is the Summer Firefighter Apprentice Program. Many of you probably have some appreciation to education in the fire service. I'm a big believer in training, education, and experience. All three of those are very important, and this type of program is going to provide value not only to the town of Sunset Beach, but also these young college students that have their fire cards, their EMT cards, and to gain some experience not only on the fire engines and in the firehouse, but also on the beach strand with EMS and rescue related tasks. I reiterated in the agenda item here some of the hours from the Beach Patrol review of 2018 of how many hours the directive was to be on the beach last summer in comparison to what was actually spent on the beach. So one of my big tasks and responsibilities I thought was to come up with different ways to staff the beach as you all wish, and find ways to creatively do that to benefit the town in regards to keeping costs down as far as we can. And I think the program as outlined, and I've spoken to different fire departments around the country, and I have some friends in different places that do live-in programs. They do some apprentice programs. Other places call them internships. So the cost is reduced for the program. We give them a small stipend. They give us some work over the 10-week program in the summer, and we help build their resume with experience to combine with their training and education. So I really believe it's going to be a win-win. For this program to be effective as early as this summer and moving forward, it is time sensitive. I have to be able to post the advertisement. I have built up relationships with several universities, the North Carolina Fire Chiefs Association, to be able to post on their job boards and conduct an application process as outlined in here, interviews and so forth, to prepare to help us with staffing and so forth as we move towards the beach season.
Paul, are you suggesting that we file a motion tonight to make it timely, because your budget preparation, I think, is not until March, if I recall?
Yeah, for us to move forward with getting the apprentice program started, I would ask for a motion to allow me to move forward with the program, so I can get it going for the summer.
And it would use this year's funding?
Some, because of the beach season's end of one year, beginning of the next.
Right.
It'll be some of both. The stipend that you see on there, these apprentices will get a stipend for weekly, but they won't get paid on top of that. So that's helping us keep the price down, or the expense down. Very little cost with uniforms and that sort of thing. We'll do training in-house and require them to come with certain training already. I think I haven't managed a program like this. The way I have it set up, my experience is in talking with others that have done it. I think we have the vision set in place to make it happen. Truly, the advertising and the connections with the colleges and we'll see ultimately, are we going to get the applications of these young people that want to come to Sunset Beach for the summer? I think the answer is going to be yes. I'm optimistic, but it could be
Do you have a number on it? Sorry, Charlie. Do you have a number?
Of apprentices?
Yes.
This year, I would like to do 4. Okay. I'm cautiously optimistic too that if we're successful, we create a good program. Could we grow it in the future? Sure, but I think I want to stay at that smaller number this year to make sure it's successful before we make it too big.
Paul, this added cost, is this cost offset by any other reductions so that it's a zero sum? And what is the additional cost? I don't want to.
Well, we're gonna, as we get into the budget for beach patrol and staffing, we'll be more into the overall picture of the budget. For these, essentially these 4 apprentices are going to work about 1,600 hours as a minimum this summer, at a cost that's lower than a seasonal employee.
I get it.
A full-time employee, even a part-time employee.
I get it.
So part of their work will be on the beach patrol? Sorry, Charlie.
Will these apprentices work just on the beach, or will they be available to augment the fire department?
Both.
And your stipend is $350 per week.
Yes.
Does that answer your?
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Go ahead, Charlie.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to begin the summer firefighter apprentice program.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. I'll keep you posted with the updates.
Looks like a great program.
We'll make it happen.
Excellent.
Paul, when do you think you'll be able to have those ads out? You want to try to shoot for this week, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so we should expect something on the website also about the program? All right.
All right, and the next item in new business is a resolution authorizing sale of property. We'll turn to Hiram and pages 34 to 37 in your packet.
Thank you. This is, well, it's a surplus resolution. We have equipment that we're no longer using. It's been declared surplus. It's not in service. We have stuff that's probably 5 or 6 years old. For some reason, we just haven't taken to the surplus before. So all the departments, they've gotten together to check to see where they've got slack, and we'd just like authorization to have the finance director set it out for sale. The listed items.
Thank you.
I'd like to put a motion that we put this in effect, the resolution authorizing the sale of these items.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Is there a discussion? Charlie?
Chief Clemmer, these firearms, were they department firearms or were they seized?
None of the firearms listed on this surplus report were purchased by the town. None of the firearms that are on this surplus list are evidentiary in nature. These are the firearms that the police department came into possession either through somebody who had, say, inherited them from a loved one that had passed on, and they no longer wanted it in their house, and they said, I don't want this anymore, here it's yours now, and they signed off on ownership that way. So we've made sure that everyone listed on here, there is no claim to it, that the possession has been turned over to the town of Sunset Beach, and we want to be sure that these end up, like it says in the resolution, to a licensed firearms dealer.
So you won't be selling that to the general public?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Good. Other questions? All right. We have a motion to, excuse me.
I think there was a motion.
I'll probably give it to you.
I think there was a motion and a second.
Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. Is there any other discussion? No. Hearing none. Have we voted on this already?
We're gonna vote right now.
Got to vote.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Ugh, apologize. Next item is the expiration of the term of some members of the Board of Adjustment. And Hiram, we're turning back to you for this.
Yes, sir. We're just seeking authorization to have the clerk advertise the reappointment or advertise the openings, and to see if the current members are acceptable for reappointment, if they're willing to accept reappointment.
Thank you. Is there a motion to provide this authorization?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to provide the authorization discussion, for the Board of Adjustment members' advertisement.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And perhaps some of you were at the community meeting on Saturday. I'm sorry to say I wasn't. I was sick and in bed for 4 days, and it sounds like I'm headed back, but really I'm not. So unfortunately, I could not be there, but I've read Laura's review of the meeting and heard several comments about it, and we're going to turn next to John for discussion of follow-up.
Okay, just to keep this in context, we had a very good meeting, about 40 people attended. What I've done here is list topics as I noted them. They're not necessarily everything that was mentioned. And my reason for doing this is so that at our next meeting, we as a council will have read these things, have thought about them, and then start to think about and discuss at the next meeting which ones we're going to act on, when we're going to act, what kind of priority they would have, and who is going to be responsible for looking after these things. Some of them require action, and others are just a little bit more discussion. And that's the whole purpose here, is to get agreement to move these topics along and have everybody think about them so we can discuss it next time, not tonight.
Would you like a motion to put this on the agenda for the February 19th meeting?
That would be fine.
And will somebody provide that motion for us?
I'd like to make a motion to put this on the February 19th meeting, discussion of the 2019 community meeting topics.
Mayor, that would just be an add-on to our director.
It would. Given the wording here, I thought maybe John was looking for a little extra statement here, and that would be no problem to provide.
And remind everybody that they have to read and think about it before the next meeting.
Did we get a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, well, we're down to the disposition of directives. If you are following in your agenda packet, this is page 41. Neil's comment about the Southern Environmental Lawsuit, Southern Environmental Law Center lawsuit, Grady briefed us tonight on any legal implications for us, talked about strategies. He and I have talked with Blakely Hildebrand, an attorney in Chapel Hill, about what would be required of the town, and he has brought us up to date on that, and we will bring that back on the agenda for February 19th, presumably for action one way or another. Item number 16, if you're looking at the list, medical insurance full coverage for council members, will also be on the February 19th agenda. I'm sorry, and then just one more thing. Council in the past had passed a resolution to oppose offshore drilling, and decided that it may wish to write a new, updated, strengthened statement. One has been drafted and will be available for council's consideration on February 19th. Those are the items that I have for February 19th. We have the tax specialist coming either in the first meeting in April or perhaps back on March 19th, but checking availability. Do council members have other items they would like to place on an upcoming agenda?
Mayor, I'd just like to add number 5 rather. Can't push that too far off because the alligators start coming out pretty soon.
Mr. Mayor.
Is it fair to say that we have hounded you with this item?
I made a call to Ms. Davis last week, and I was waiting on a return phone call, so I haven't forgotten.
We're just at the mercy of wildlife.
Mr. Mayor, Item 15, now that we've scheduled the tax specialist, can be removed.
Okay, that will go on one of our next two agendas, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's some other issues that I have listed here, Mr. Mayor, that I think need some timely attention. They've been on the queue for many, many, many weeks, and seem to get bumped down.
Okay. Do you, you've got...
No, that's enough. That's
Okay.
fine. That's just a comment.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that is as much as we can do with those tonight. Do we have any end of the meeting public comments that anyone would like to share? Okay, seeing none. I do have one very brief statement to make before we adjourn. Sometimes in working together, honest people see things differently. And sometimes one or more of those people may feel that a process has worked in a way that it makes them so uncomfortable that they feel a need to take action. So I'm taking this opportunity to announce that I am resigning as mayor, effective tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock. I will use tomorrow to make sure that I've returned all my materials to Town Hall, that things are in place for my successor, and to follow through on a couple citizen requests for assistance. I thank the council and I thank the community for the opportunity to serve as mayor. I hope I have made some contribution, and I'm sorry that I couldn't have done more. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Those opposed? I wasn't voting nay. The meeting stands adjourned.